it's your girl Morgan. Welcome to the Get Real podcast. In case you're new here, this is the podcast where we talk about everything. Business, parenting, and all the other things I'm barely surviving. We pick the brains of professionals, hear inspirational stories, and get advice from friends. Literally, this is your everything podcast, and I'm so glad you're here. If you haven't already, go ahead and subscribe so that you can stay tuned for all the episodes and never miss a beat. All right, let's dive in. Welcome back to Get Real with Morgan. I'm so glad that you are here. So glad you are starting your week off with me. Or if you're catching this at the end of the week, I hope you're doing well. Hope you've made it through this week. But either way, I'm just glad that you're here. Glad you're listening in. So I have been doing some research. Psychology has always interested me. The way that the mind works, understanding why we do the things that we do, all of that has always just been so intriguing to me. And we'll get, through this life together, I guess we'll say, the lifetime of this podcast, getting to know one another, y'all will hear some more personal stories that I just recently realized that I've never really even talked about to y'all on social media, really. And today in church, I like to record these on Sunday. Today in church, the message was all about boasting about your weaknesses. I know that sounds strange, but pretty much what I took away from it was using your past experiences, as dark as they are, as hard as they were to get through, using those moments as your testimony, boasting about your weaknesses and glorifying God, showing how you made it out, how He helped you make it out. And that just really stuck with me, along with what really sparked this conversation that we're about to have. I was reading a book called The Body Keeps the Score. And I'm going to butcher the author's name. I just know I'm going to. So I did write it down just so I would have it right here in front of me. It's Bessel van der Kolk. I'm sure I am 1,000% positive that I butchered that poor man's name. But here we are. If you're going to go look it up, just look it up by the title of the book, The Body Keeps the Score. And in this book, it's talking about PTSD and the way the brain works, the early stages of diagnosing it, the studies that they've done, the tests that they run, looking at actual chemicals in the brain, watching the brain light up when they're talking about certain situations and events that would trigger an episode. And the author said something, and he had learned this from one of his teachers before, but it stuck with me, and I had to immediately write it down because I knew I had to talk about this one day. The greatest source of our suffering are the lies we tell ourselves. That just struck me to the core because I've done this before. We oftentimes allow ourselves to stay in certain situations, in certain places, because we're scared to admit that we failed. We're scared to start over. We stay in these places longer than we're intended to. And the whole time we are subconsciously creating lies. We're creating excuses. We're minimizing things that are big things. We are convincing ourselves why we should stay there. Whether it's an actual place, whether it's a relationship, it's all the same. Because no one wants to admit that they have to start over. No one wants to admit that they failed or that what they planned didn't work. It may be that we tell ourselves things are going to get better. Maybe it's a relationship with a spouse. Maybe you're convincing yourself that your spouse is going to change, that they're going to stop self-destructing, that they're going to stop hurting themselves, that they're going to stop hurting you. Maybe the relationship is with a boss. Maybe you're convincing yourself that you're finally going to get that raise that you were promised, or you're going to get the recognition for a project you completed. or you're just going to get the respect that you deserve. Maybe it's a career choice or a business that you started. Maybe it's a whole situation like that. You worked so hard and you've planned for so long. You've been fighting. You put your blood, sweat, tears into this idea and it's not working. Or maybe it's that you thought you were going to get joy out of it and you're getting there and you realize this isn't what you want to do. But oh my goodness, the embarrassment. We can't stop now. We have to keep going. We can't let everyone see that we changed our mind or that it didn't work. Failure and embarrassment oftentimes drive us to create these lies inside our minds, convince ourselves that something's right when it's wrong, something will get better when it won't. Sometimes we convince ourselves that we're the bad guy, that we're undeserving, that we're unlovable. Sometimes we convince ourselves that we ourselves are the failure. Sometimes we get stuck in grief or guilt. We blame ourselves for certain events that have happened. We blame ourselves for doing something that caused an event, or maybe we didn't do something and the event happened anyways. And we tell ourselves, if I had just been there, things would be different. If I had just done this, things would be different. If I just said this, things would be different. But the reality is these are lies. These are lies that are holding us hostage in our situations, holding us hostage in, most of the time, a negative situation. So I realized when I was talking with a friend that while I've been vulnerable, I have not really shared much of my real story with you guys. Like I said, at church, the sermon spoke to me, and this quote had been sitting here in my journal, and I knew I needed to say it, and I knew I needed to talk about it. And then our pastor talked to us today, and I just knew this was the time. Okay, so here's the deal. This podcast, it's for all of us. It's for all of us to learn from one another. So I want to know, what do you want to know? What topics do you want to hear? What guests would you like to hear from? What do you want to learn next? Head over to morgancharleigh.com and drop me a line. Fill out the little form. And I promise I'll do my best to cover that topic or find that person that can. And remember, you can catch us here every week. Be sure to hit the little subscribe button so you never miss a beat. I grew up in a divorced family. I grew up in a split house. And all I wanted was to do better than that. If you grew up with a divorced family, if you're currently divorced, you have a divided home now, or you're on the verge of it and you're like me, I never wanted my kids to grow up in a split household. I never wanted them to see mom and dad not together. I had this vision that I think a lot of young people have. You have this vision of this family. I had this vision of the White House and the black shutters, the wraparound porch, all the kids running in and out of the house. Maybe they're playing basketball in the driveway or pool in the game room. They've got friends over all the time. I'm cooking in the kitchen with the big island bar where everybody can sit. They're running up grabbing snacks off the counter, and I'm hollering out to the kids, who's staying for dinner, so I know how many plates to fix. I always wanted my house to be the hangout house, the house that was never quiet, that was always full of friends and family, having gatherings. I had this dream of a family. I had this dream of a marriage. I had this dream of a teammate, that no matter what, we were better together, and we fought for our family. We fought to make our family better. I had this dream of a husband that would teach my boys what being a dad looked like, what being a husband looked like, that my boys would see what loving, truly loving a woman looked like, opening the doors for females, giving up your seat. He would teach them that this right here in this home, there's nothing more important outside of these walls. I wanted my kids to learn that a family, their children one day, a good woman, I wanted them to see that these are gifts. And every day, it was their job to wake up and prove that they deserved it. Don't get me wrong. A husband, a good man, is a gift. And that's what I wanted, to wake up. It would be my job to wake up and prove every day that I deserved it, that I deserved the gift that I received. So we're going to go back in time. I was pregnant with my second son. And my ex-husband now, spoiler alert, he had unilaterally decided that he was taking a job out of town. He would be traveling for weeks at a time, really no set schedule, didn't know when the project would end, wouldn't know when another one would start. Of course, I cried. I threw a fit. I begged and pleaded and stomped and yelled, and I was given the ultimatum. I could do what I had to do, but he was taking this job. So I'm a few weeks away from introducing a new baby into this crazy mix with a 1.5-year-old. And now it's going to be a one-woman show. After all the crying and the fit throwing, I calmed down and I accepted what I was being told. This was going to be life-changing money. This is going to better our family. This is how we get to the life that we were wanting to live. I was told that over and over and over again. And I believed it eventually. I convinced myself that he was doing what, as a man, he had to do to provide for us. That he was doing what he needed to do to better our family, to better our children. I convinced myself that I was the problem. I was just being a brat, if you will. That this living situation was normal. It was going to be normal. People do it all the time. But this was never the vision or the dream that I had. At first, it seemed like maybe this was going to work. He had a semi-set schedule. He'd work a few weeks on, and then he'd be home for a week. The money he was making was good. I just had to suck it up and do my part. Take care of the kids, try to keep my sanity, keep all the kids alive. So throughout the years came more kids. And with more kids came less of an opportunity for me to maintain the job that I loved. I was a nurse, a full-time nurse for a plastic surgeon, and I absolutely loved that job, adored that physician. And with so many kids, so young, it's so hard to do it all by yourself. So I had to quit that job. And then it turned into me really just trying to find any way to make an income and raise these babies, keep them healthy, do doctor's appointments, because, if one got sick, the next would get sick, and then the next, and here we are on a roll. And I never felt like we were getting any closer to that dream that I thought we both had. We'll talk about addiction one day. That's not what this conversation is about, but addiction ruins lives, it ruins families, and we know that. Gambling addiction, sex addiction, alcohol addiction, all the things, they played a part. The life-changing money never came, or at least it never came back home. Then there were the women. You feel so small when even his friends can't stand to watch it anymore, and they're the ones telling you what's going on. So years of struggling, fighting, isolation, but I couldn't fail. I had to stay. I could fix it. I could fix it. I could fix him. I could fix this family. I could fix everything. I had to. I couldn't fail my children. I said they would not have divorced parents. I wanted them to grow up in the White House with the black shutters, with the basketball goal, mom and dad at home every night. But that's not what I had. That's not what I was giving them. That's not reality. Because reality was, I was at home with 4 babies, literally selling shampoo online, trying to make any kind of money. My home was $23,000 behind in mortgage payments. Nobody ever said thank you to COVID, I don't think, except for me, because that was almost 2 years of house payments because of COVID. I was able to maintain my home. In Vander Kolk's book, The Body Keeps the Score, he mentions something called grounding and literally references feeling your butt in your chair, being grounded in reality, feeling here. I will never forget that day for me. My home was $23,000 behind in mortgage payments. I had just received the first foreclosure letter. He had just come home from a job. He may have been there for a few weeks. It might have been a few days. Every time was different. He had come home between jobs, and we went to the grocery store. And of course, painting the perfect picture, the happy couple going through the grocery store, happily strolling, filling up the grocery cart while the kids were playing with grandma at her house for a few hours. And we've loaded up the grocery cart. It's full and we had to check out. My heart kind of stopped for a second. I was waiting to see what was going to happen. The cashier's swiping the groceries and I'm watching the dollar amount on the screen. And she swipes the last item and looks up for payment. And he looks at me and he motions like for me to pay. So I pulled out a gold card and handed it to the cashier and we leave. And we're strolling to the car in the parking lot. And he asked me, what card was that you used? And I quietly said, it's an EBT card. And he's still walking, not missing a beat, not concerned or anything about what had just happened, but no two people's experiences are the same. And he says, oh, what's that? And I stopped strolling the cart in the middle of the parking lot. And I looked down and I looked back up and I said, it's food stamps. This next moment was my grounding moment. It was like waking up from years of mental manipulation, those lies that we were talking about, that you convince yourself of, years of this doom cycle of survival mode. This next moment is what snapped me back into reality. When I told him it was food stamps, his response was, I'm so proud of you. And he hugged me. I'm so proud of you. That's what you say when somebody accomplishes something. That's what you say when they meet a milestone in their life, when they've done something so good. And you say, I'm so proud of you. And you hug him. He was proud of this moment. We were losing our house. Our marriage was tainted, at the least. We were broken and broke and on food stamps. And proud was the word that was used. I knew then I couldn't fix this. This was bigger than me. And this is the part where they tell you nobody changes until they're ready to change. You can't change anybody. I laid down any feelings of embarrassment that I thought would come. I gave up any thoughts of the guilt I would feel if I was the reason that my kids ended up with a split home. The word failure in that moment wasn't something that I had done, but it was something that I could do. Because the reality is, the truth is, I hadn't failed. He had failed us, but I had not failed yet. Would what is happening right now be embarrassing? Yes. But where we were headed was going to be more embarrassing. Me feeling defeated now was nowhere in comparison to how I would feel if my children were defeated later, because I allowed this life to continue the way it was. And guilt, talk about guilt. The guilt I would feel knowing that I raised 4 boys that grew up and followed this path. Was what was going to happen next going to be hard? Absolutely. But it was already hard. I was already trying to keep my head above the water with these 4 babies. But doing that alone would be easier than doing it with an anchor around my ankle. Somebody fighting and pulling all of us down. My children had to know better. In order for them to know better, they had to see better. And they deserved better. And it took me a long time of fighting those lies before I could admit it, but I deserved better. Undoing the things that we have convinced ourselves of when we had been told so many times and we had made it factual in our own minds. No one will love you like I love you. You only care about money. You're just a gold digger. The love bombing and the gaslighting and the narcissistic hold. It's hard. It was hard. And it's still a battle that I fight today. And it's been years and years. For me, it took something more than myself. It took something bigger than myself to finally snap out of it. I'm a tough girl. I could live with the mean things. I could be all of those things. That's fine. I could be unlovable. I could be materialistic. But what I couldn't be was a bad mom. I hadn't failed yet, but I could. Letting my children go hungry, losing their home, allowing them to grow up thinking this is okay, that this is what love looks like, this is what family looks like, that this is what being a father looks like, this is how you are supposed to provide for the ones that you love most. Me letting them know that this is okay, that would have been my failure. Changing your circumstances, knowing when to let go, knowing when it's time to change, realizing it's bad now, but it could get so much worse. It's not failing. This is what winning looks like. Winning is not in a straight line. It's going to get worse before it gets better. But staying in the same place, doing the same thing over and over and over again, expecting different results, is insanity. That is not just a quote you saw on Instagram. Ramming yourself into the brick wall again and again and again, man, stop. Back up. Go around. It might take you longer. You might feel like you're at a setback. You might have to start over. But getting to the destination is the key to winning, whatever your destination may be. So take a look in the mirror. Put down your lies. You were made for more. You deserve more. And whoever's watching you deserves to know that they can aim for more and they can win too. This is a long game. This life is a marathon. It is not a sprint. Your score isn't called in until you see Jesus' face. So when you feel like there's no way to start over, there's no way to hit reset, when you are stuck in misery, you are down in a dark place, you can. You can hit reset. You can start over. You can get to the finish line. It just might look differently than you thought it did. Don't let the lies you tell yourself keep you in your suffering anymore.